Commend this bill to the House.
Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labor supports this bill also, the Harmful Digital Communications Bill, to Select Committee, because I think it's been pointed out that there are a number of good reasons for us to be having this conversation in the current environment about harmful digital communications and how that should be defined and what the remedies are for dealing with them. There is certainly no doubt that the Law Commission's work on which this bill is based was an important piece of work. I would contend that it's not an end in itself, that it's an evolving issue, and that the Law Commission have attempted to come to grips with something which hasn't been addressed in this country before. So it's a good start. I would contend, however, that the bill that's in front of us, while I guess you could call it also a good start, is certainly not without some fishhooks and without some issues, and I want to outline some of them tonight because it is absolutely critical that through the Select Committee process, which is what Labor supports this bill going to, that there is a very good and open discussion. One of the most important things that we should not be doing with a bill such as this is to try to rush it through and also try to treat it in a way that is reactive to a couple of big issues that are happening out in society at the moment that have caused a lot of media attention. When we make laws in this Parliament, we must make them in the cold light of day, considering all of the issues and considering the wider issues of principle that lie behind such a new piece of law, which is attempting to regulate what happens on the internet. And this is new territory for New Zealand. It's new territory in most of the world, and we must, as a small progressive country, be mindful of the wider issues, some of which I want to outline tonight in the House. Things that I think are very important are the 10 communication principles upon which the bill is based. I think that's a really good solid foundation for this bill. The second thing that I want to commend is the fact that this bill has got a very strong alignment with the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990, and I absolutely commend the Minister for actually putting a bill in front of this House that draws such a direct link with the New Zealand Bill of Rights, and I think that's a good foundation upon which to start. Things that I have some questions around are to do with the safe harbour provisions, which I'll go into in a minute. The concept of an approved agency and the question mark that I have around that is, as I know that there is a beginning public discussion around this, is that an agency that plays an advocacy role then is that a good idea then for them to also play a mediating role, and has that been properly thought through, and also has it been thought through what the accompanying resources might need to be put into that agency in order for it to deal with what is likely to be an enormous number of complaints and issues that it may very well have to deal with, and being able to sort the wheat from the chaff, the ones that really do have to be dealt with, is going to be a major challenge. This is, as I've said, Mr. Speaker, new territory, and it's absolutely critical that we have thought all of those things through. Secondly, also, I think there's a question mark around costs, and I know certainly in the previous discussions by my colleagues that where the costs get recovered in this side, the bill appears to be silent on that, that those issues are really important. Is there a cost recovery role that should be thought about in terms of who actually pays for a lot of the the change in practice that's going to result as a result of this bill being enacted, if it is. A couple of things that I think raise alarm bells directly is the issues around the potential criminalising of children. And certainly I think in the discussions in the Select Committee on this bill, I think this is going to be of enormous importance and interest, and thinking through what that actually means and how that can impact out there in our community. Just as an aside, Mr. Speaker, it was also drawn to my attention that the very purpose clause has a bit of a problem in it and needs a bit of a rewrite straight away, because it reads that the purpose of this bill is to mitigate the harm caused to individuals by digital communications. Well, harm caused to individuals doesn't happen by digital communications, it actually happens by people. And I know that my colleague in the New Zealand First raised a different perspective on that, but the fact is that the internet isn't a sentient being, as I think my Green colleague Gareth Hughes pointed out. The internet doesn't cause the harm, it's the people using the internet that cause the harm. And I think that's also pretty important for us to talk about. There are many things to discuss in this bill. There's going to be an enormous discussion in the Select Committee about these matters. I have, and I just want to put on the record that I have reservations around having a piece of legislation that creates new criminal offences in the digital environment. My uneasiness is built on the premise that bullying, harassment and abuse is bullying, harassment and abuse no matter what the medium is in which it occurs, whether it's in the playground, on the phone or on your Facebook page or by text. But then I certainly think that this is the discussion and this is the crux of the issue, and I think it's important for every member in this House to have an open mind in coming into the discussion on this bill, because is the internet a special place where there is a new paradigm existing, where issues can take off in a matter of minutes and certainly hours, and where there can be a maelstrom created and harm that may not happen in the physical environment. And I certainly think that that question has to be considered. So therefore, does there need to be new offences, criminal offences and measures developed for the internet that do not exist in the physical environment? And I certainly think that that's going to be one of the major issues for discussion in the Select Committee.
Alfred Naro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to take just a brief call, but in support of all of the House